Hey guys, thanks for checking out my channel, Maverick's Arcade. My name is Chuck, and today we're going to be talking about cutting out the holes and everything in your control panel. This will include the hole for a trackball, it'll include the holes for a spinner, the joystick, and the buttons. Now, one thing to be aware of is when cutting the trackball, we have a flush mount trackball from Ultimark, and we're using the bezel, so we're going to use a 3.5-inch hole cutter. If you weren't going to use the bezel, that would be a 3.25-inch hole cutter. We're also using just a little drill bit to cut pilot holes. This will help guide to make sure that we keep the holes for the plexi and the wood in the same location. And then this bit, which is awesome, works best for the plexiglass, is called a step-down bit. Now, the thing that's different about this bit, as you can see, it's got these little channels in here, and it's also got different rings with measurements listed on it. Now, this goes up to 1 1/8, which is the whole size that you need for cutting standard arcade buttons. So with this, we don't have to step down and stop. We can go right through. And again, this works great for cutting into the plexi, as you will see soon. Now, I've already recorded the video of me cutting out the plexiglass and the wood outside. So like my previous video for the trackball, I'm going to show that up in this corner here and have a little bit of commentation otherwise. Again, the video can be kind of boring. Luckily, it's not live and it's on YouTube, so you can fast forward ahead. But I wanted to show the whole process for the people that aren't sure and haven't done this before, that all the instructions are there. Now, this video, again, is just cutting out the holes in the plexi and the board. One thing to be concerned about is that when you're picking the size of your control panel for the wood or MDF, to make sure that the thickness of that wood and plexi, if you decide to use it, do not exceed 3/4 inches. If it goes over 3/4 inches, then the trackball and everything would be too far recessed, and little bug, and just things won't fit. You don't want to go above 3/4. You also really don't want to go below half. So try to make sure your total thickness and what you choose to use to make your control panel does not exceed 3/4. So I'm gonna put my headphones on here so I can follow along with the video. So check it out. This is me again out back after I've cut the pieces out. Alright, so we're outside and we've drilled a couple of our pilot holes. Drilled a couple of our pilot holes already over here and a trackball hole, but we're just going to drill the rest. And then we've got clamped down in the front and the back of the board so that the plexi doesn't shift away from the wood. Again, it's just a tiny little drill bit. And again, we're marking this spot. We'll just drill on through. And this is just to punch little holes. Just little holes at this point. And this is again so that the board and the plexi will match up when we're done. Worst thing that could happen, besides cracking the plexiglass, which I've got plenty of experience with, would be if we get everything finished, we go to match everything up, and the holes are completely off from where we drilled them for the buttons. Now, another thing is when I set up mine, I'd found a layout that I wanted, and I made a printout of it. And then I took that same graphic and I just drew the circles, and I was able to use that graphic. I'm not sure if it's going to work for us real quick or not, but I'm going to try to drill that center piece while I've still got it mounted. Yeah, so I used that graphic and I was able to make
now where I get to
pretty
see if I
effects.
wasted $70 or not. So, try adjusting this. This is a 3.5-inch hole saw. Just doesn't seem to be moving fast enough. It's my only concern. Let's see how
there was an issue with the battery. Yeah, so the layout that I used to determine where to cut the holes for the buttons for the players, I kept that graphic. I was then able to use that graphic to make art on my control panel.
We've got the plexiglass out. That was my biggest concern. We started seeing wood show up here. that's awesome. I feel a lot better. It's really making me nervous about that Plexi. So we're gonna now get right back in the hole. I think I need another battery.
Yeah, the battery.
Alright, so there's definitely something wrong with the other battery because this one is ready to go. And we have a perfectly cut hole for that trackball. Very excited about that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the plexiglass off. We're going to cut just the holes in the wood. Or actually, what we'll do first is we will use the Plexi. We will use the Plexi, or this hole that we just cut, to help cut the rest of the holes in our plexiglass. So let me get the step bit, and we will use that, and I'll also get the bit that we'll need next for the control panel. Be right back.
Step bit.
Alright, so we got a step bit here and a little 1 1/8 inch flange to cut the wood here. Now this step bit goes up to 1 1/8. So in this case with the Plexi, we're just going to push right through carefully with this step bit on each of the holes. Now to drill the Plexi, what we're going to do is we're going to undo the clamps here, and we're going to take that off. Do the same on the other side. Take these off. We're going to use the very large hole that we have here in the middle for the trackball as our drilling space for the Plexi. Let me switch that bit here. Again, this is a step down bit. Seems to work really well with the plexiglass. So we're going to go ahead, put it in our pilot hole here.
As you can see, I'm using a hole in the wood so I don't scratch the wood.
Again, very nice cut hole. Before I continue, let me get my safety glasses.
Safety first.
Now, because this protective coating, we should be okay, but we still want to protect the Plexi as much as possible, so we're going to pick it up.
So don't drag it.
This is our next hole bit. Again, you can see how easy the step bit goes right through. Very carefully. We'll move it on down one more.
Should be fun part. As you can see, I'm lifting it between each one.
Try not to scratch that Plexi. Bring this hole down here. Continue the process. Bring it up slightly. Down slightly. And look at it still. That's it for you. Got a little shop rag here. I'll just dust off all these little fiber pieces all over the backyard. It's alright. You gotta be careful not to stick yourself. They'll kind of give you a splinter. That's not good. So then we'll dust off the most of this surface that we can. Again, we're just gonna be careful with the Plexi. Lift it up. Put it over here to the side for the moment. We'll try to dust it off a little bit more. Rather dust it off outside before we take it in. So we got a nice, so far our cuts have been good, knock on wood, right there. And we're going to dust off this piece for now. Wipe around that edge. Nice. So, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this 1/8 bit, Now you'll notice on the step down bit, you'll get a lot of plastic around the bottom from all the protective coating and the plexiglass on there. So just pull that off, put your bit down. We're going to switch over to this 1 1/8 inch paddle bit. And again, we're going to go back over all the same holes that we originally used the pilot bit on. So we'll go to this corner here.
Fast forward time.
That's quick. Now make sure also you're always drilling from the top down. If you drill the other direction, you might get splinters in visible areas. Keep going. I did previously make a mistake trying to use a paddle bit Plexi. Don't do that. It will shatter. A little bit here. Not too worried about it. Cover up this. One noticeable and we wrap around the so we'll get that as well. And we're just continuing on. The holes right here. Going up here.
It was determined later what I was saying here wasn't important.
Continue on. Keep later there. And part of the reason why I'm having to redo this now is because originally I didn't calculate for plexiglass being adding to the thickness, and now my trackball is very, very far recessed. It's very hard to use it, so that made me have to redo it. And plus, when I originally did it, I didn't have that hole saw, and this was all chewed up. It did not look good at all. So, by using a hole saw and doing it proper, that worked great. And oh, by the way, if you're going to be doing the trackball with the bezel, use a what was this measurement?
3.5.
Of course, I've destroyed the measurement on there.
It's right here.
This is a 3.5 inch hole saw. If you're doing it without the bezel, it's a 3.25 inch hole. But I'm using the little bezel that goes on top. It's a 3.5 inch.
Bezel's pretty.
So we got the last hole here.
You see another hole popped up? That was the spinner I'd forgotten about.
And the next step we're going to do, take that Plexi good.
Now we gotta see if it matches up. I'm rolled.
Let's hold the Plexi by here and brush the dusting off. There's dusting it off. And let's see how everything lines up. Alright, looks like everything lines up really well on this. Now, the next thing we're going to do is, my previous panel, everything was very, very, very sharp on the edges. So one thing I want to try to do is see if I clamp that backside, if I can actually use a sander to round the edges of the whole thing. So again, we're going to grab our clamps. This time we're going to use 2. This time we're going to use 2 here. I'll put that right there and there. Making sure we're lined up. We're lined up perfectly in here. That looks lined up. You know, I want to make sure everything's lined up, because if we do all this work with it not exactly precise, it's going to look funny when we're actually using it. So let's close this in now. Let's do it the other side so I'm not getting creating a hard point on there. Alright, so then what we're going to do, again, same thing on this side. I want this to be nice and tight. You definitely don't want to use a clamp directly on the Plexi. It'll put too much pressure on it and it will shatter a piece. So definitely use a flat edge. I'm checking all the holes now to make sure everything is 100% lined up still before I take any other action. It looks like everything
Stink bug.
is still just right. So that's perfect. We can continue. Let me get the sander.
Apparently I forgot to clip this part where I'm walking away getting in the sander. I've also been chasing the stink bug all night trying to find him. It lives in a bottle. What do you mean?
Alright. So what I'm attempting to do with the sander is going to be to round these edges so that they're not so pointy. And we'll see how we do.
No, you should try this on plastic practice boards, but I tried it on the real thing.
There we go. Got a pretty rounded edge now. It's not as hard as it was. And the corners are definitely cut down a lot more than they were. So it'll definitely create a smoother surface. And again, all of our holes are mounted up perfect. The only issue now will be when I actually go to mount it and I find out where my screw points are going to be in. I'm going to use that step down bit. Instead of going all the way through, probably only going to go to about half. That way the screws to actually mount the Plexi won't be on the Plexi. It'll be on the board. And there'll be a hole big enough for the screws to go through. I don't want to try to put too much pressure on this. The buttons and the joystick and the trackball should be enough to hold that Plexi in place without having to screw down other points that would be stress points.
So the one thing I was also mentioning before was that when I was designing the board and putting my original marks for the pilot holes, I had found online a layout that other people had used for their buttons. So for example, here is what I had found. I did a test print and everything seemed to be the right distance on my fingers and stuff, so I saved that image. I then turned around and I made that image into a graphic, which is right here. So as you can see, I can then use this to actually label the buttons and everything like that, because I'm not getting a huge vinyl thing printed out for my control panel, but I do have a color laser printer, and I did use photo printer, so I was able to use that and an X-Acto blade to exactly cut out the holes for the buttons and to cut a big circle around the image. And I have a little bit of artwork that I've also cut straight out that I printed from the photo printer. So I was able to use the original graphic and then make sure to save that and then color it over and make it useful for artwork. So I definitely recommend you do that when you're designing your layout for your buttons, is make sure to save it so that you can use those measurements later. But this is the section on how to cut out the board and the Plexi for your panel. I'm working on a video now for how to actually wire all the controls. Aside from what we've already shown. In my trackball video, I showed how to mount the trackball. In my joystick videos, I've shown how to mount the joysticks. I've shown how to mount the buttons. So really what this next video is going to be is it's going to be showing my control panel, showing some of the artwork on my control panel, and showing how I actually wired everything together for the buttons to actually work. Now another thing that's going to be kind of interesting is on my arcade cabinet, I have lights built into the cabinet. Now there's two ways you could go about this. You could have a cabinet LED controller, but I wanted all my stuff to be integrated into the same controller for animations and everything like that, but also I don't have another controller. So I actually used RJ45 jacks and plates and connectors to make it so I can easily remove the board. Again, another reason why I was redesigning the board is because with testing parts, which I did not originally plan on, I'm going to be moving in and out parts quite often, so I wanted to make sure that the board was easily removable. So, if you guys have any questions, please comment below or email mavericksarcade@gmail.com. And if you have any other questions, let me know. Again, as I get ready for my thing, thank you for watching. Hey guys, thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please click like below. If you have any questions or comments, you may comment below or email mavericksarcade@gmail.com. Also, we are now streaming on Twitch, and this is our URL, so it's www.twitch.tv/mavericksarcade. Please check us out. We'll be playing some old classic PS1, PS2 games and other games that I just generally didn't play much, so I'm going to need your help. If these are games that you know, please jump online. Make sure to tell me. And the way you can do that is either through the chat on Twitch, or we are now using Discord. So look on our main page. There's a URL for the Discord to join for that. And then you'll be able to join us in our live streams or when we're streaming on YouTube. That will allow us to share the chat on the screen and for you to communicate via voice over our show while we're recording. So please check it out. Looking forward to seeing you guys and actually getting to speak to you guys while we're doing our streams. Again, please consider subscribing, and thank you again for watching.